those who lost their lives from the hinterlands to get to this place, from here through to the Middle Passage. Also in the dungeons, a lot of our people died there. On board the ship when they were supposed to be transporting them to the other side. Because of limited resources, a lot of our ancestors were thrown overboard. Those who made it to the other side, also because of lack of food, so many of them had to sacrifice themselves for their brothers and sisters to survive, so that today you'll be standing here. A lot died. In order for us to bring back their souls, that is why we are here today. They hope to return back home themselves, but that wasn't made possible. So on that note, I would like us to have a minute of silence in their memories. After that, I will say, may their souls rest in perfect peace. It's either we respond by saying Ashe or Amen. Either way, it's okay. So please, let's have a minute of silence. Messiah Garvey Jr., and I quote, "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our own mind." And then one from Haile Selassie. An awareness of our past is essential to the establishment of our personalities and our identities as Africans. On our own land in the African nations, we have a proverb, typically among the Togolese and then the Voltarians of Ghana, including those from Benin. We have a saying that until the tales of the hunt is told by the lion, the hunt will always glorify the hunter. As Africans, anytime I place ourselves or myself in these particular quotes, we kind of fit in. We are out there in the diaspora. Not all of us knows where we are from, or like even though we know we are from Africa, not all of us have been here. How do we become aware of our past? It's by returning home to fetch that which was left behind by our ancestors, the culture, the people, and then all sorts of other things that we were left with. So here we are in Africa, practically Ghana. As part of our lesson, we travel around to learn from places, bit by bit, so that we can fix the puzzle. We are being aware of our past. The history of slave trade has been told to us for a very long time by the same people who place us in the chains and shackles. How do we change that? We are getting aware now. Today we have made the journey to the motherland. That is a sign. For our ancestors back in the days, in the chains and shackles, when they were being transported through the ocean, deep inside their hearts, they looked back and told themselves that we'll be back home one day. But that's just a mere hope. So when they got to the plantation, seeing the things around them, they realized that it's going to be a tough battle. But they didn't give up. They fought their way through everything that was thrown at them, so that one day, the generations of today will start coming back home. They will get the freedom that they couldn't get, and then return back home. And this is a significant return for you three. The journey wasn't made because you wanted to. Your ancestors needed to be back home today. That's why you are on this land. So I always tell my brothers and sisters, my aunties and my uncles, that they are coming back home has been written a long time ago by the spirit of their ancestors. So I appreciate the fact that you are here in Asemanso, and then for you to bring back the spirit and the souls of your ancestors. So let's get back to the trade back then during the Gold Coast era. Ghana had close to, I can't name it. It's a lot of empires we had back then. The Ashantis were one, the Akwemus, the Ahanta people, the Dentra people, and several others. Among themselves, they were fighting for territorial gains to expand their territories. And due to that, Gold Coast stretched to part of Togo, Burkina Faso, Mali, and then Ivory Coast all the neighboring countries. A little bit of it was here in Ghana. And during the transatlantic slave trade, people who were raided from these angles were chained together. Children, pregnant women, inclusively, were placed in the chains, made to walk for a certain mile to the Salaga slave market in the northern interior of Ghana. According to a renowned historian here in Ghana, Professor Akosia Adomapebi, in her book entitled History of the Indigenous Slavery of Ghana from the 15th century to the 19th century, she made notice that out of all the slave markets we have scattered on the continent, Gold Coast or Ghana alone had close to 63 of those slave markets. We had Salaga slave markets, Sampa, Janani, Ketekrachi. Kumasi happened to be the hub that connects all the little slave markets in the northern interior to the Asemansu slave market. You move to the Cape Coast Dungeon, Elmina Dungeon, Fort Amsterdam, Fort William, all the way to the Christiansborg Castle in Osu, just to mention a few. A British historian, W.E. Ward, he also traveled during the era of the slave trade. In his travel journal entitled The Short History of Ghana, he made mention that out of all the slave markets I've mentioned, 2 of them played a significant role: the Asemansu slave market and that of the Salaga slave market in the northern interior of Ghana. He went further to explain to us that for our ancestors in the chains and shackles to walk from there to get to this place, it took them over 70 days. The distance between these 2 slave markets is over 300 miles. Today, if you calculate it, it's over 402 miles. And our ancestors were walking through the jungle, almost naked, barefooted, in chains and shackles, receiving whips. Coming, they went through the Mole National Park, a nature reserve full of wild animals. For our ancestors to be moved through that park, full of hyenas, leopards, black panthers, and so many others, there had to be sacrifices. So the raiders will look among the chains and shackles. The weaker captives were taken out, tied to a tree, and then it was then that they gave them multiple whips. The blood that oozed out of them was sensed by the animals. And while the animals were drawn to where they were, the rest were moved out of the park. They succeeded, but those people lost their lives there. They gave their life for their brothers. They went on the journey until they met the river called the Pra River. A huge river came between them and then the market here at Asemansu. For our ancestors coming from the interior, they were not much exposed to huge rivers like the Pra. So when they got there, it became a matter of the survival of the fetus. The men and the women who had the strength to cross the river had to help out by picking some of their brothers and sisters on their shoulders. And doing so got a lot of them weaker and they drowned in the river. Those who drowned there were buried just at the bank of the Pra River. It was a tough one getting here. For my mothers and my siblings, my sisters who were of age, they had to go through their monthly cycle. 70 days to get to this place. 2 different monthly cycles. And whenever the blood is flowing, it attracts some insects and also the wild animals. So when it's about to get to that period, you hear them cry because they knew exactly what is going to happen to them. For that matter, they need to keep them shut. And then the slavers were using 2 different treatments. Sometimes they use the stone treatment or the metal mask treatment. The stone treatment was done in a way that they look for stones a little bit wider than their mouths, force it in there, and then had it tied around their necks. Or they force a bunch of leaves into their mouth and cover it up with the metal mask. That way, they are allowed to shed their tears, but nobody hears their voice. They made it to Asemansu, but when they got here, they were tired, hungry, and very, very dirty. Here at Asemansu, the slavers saw the need for them to be fed. But here lies the case, they weren't fed because they were hungry. Our ancestors were fed because of the amount of money the buyers they will get from the buyers. Covering 70 days to get to this place, so many of them have grown lean and they need to get them back to shape. So they had to feed them. So after feeding them, that was when they looked at the men, those who had their hairs bushy, their beards bushy, and they take it off with a broken bottle. After doing that to them, they were sorted out according to age and sex. Mostly the women together with the kids, and then the men separately. And after that was done, they walked them all the way to the river for them to take their final bath. We'll be going to the river, but before then, I'll tell you about the graves behind me. Here lies the mortal remain of Madame Chisel from Kingston, Jamaica. Samuel Carson from New York City, United States. And that is the remains of our ancestors, a collection of the bones who were brought all the way from Barbados. Madame Chisel was a former slave from this earth, all the way to Jamaica. When they got there, she took it upon herself to rebel by not eating anything being fed to them by the British. But back then, if you are found rebelling against the food, if you are found starving yourself, they will have to force you to eat. Doing so, they will have to use several methods. The method that was used on her was the chisel and hammer method. They had to knock it out, put a funnel in there, dish the food into the funnel with the help of water that was stirred down her throat. That way she stayed alive for them not to lose their money. But the woman is an African woman. You know what you are. Very brave and sometimes stubborn. After all that was done to her, she didn't give up. She waits until they have left. Once they have gone, she'll put her hands in the mouth and then bring everything out. She continues to starve herself and later died in the process. According to oral history, her dying wish was that any time slave trade comes to an end, they should bring back her remains, anything that is left of her, even if it's a finger bone, it should be brought back home to be buried. Samuel Carson happened to come alongside her. Samuel happened to be the first African American to rise to the highest rank in the Navy. When he died, he wasn't given a befitting burial. So they saw the need for her, Samuel together with Chisel, to be brought back home. They were all flown into the country by a very national flight called the Ghana Airways. In 1998, Chisel from Jamaica, Samuel from New York City. They all touched down, moved by road until they got to a community by the road called Anomabo. It used to be a slave harbor where slaves or captives were being shipped out of this continent. The youth then, knowing the history behind these people, denying them access via roads. They told the elders that these people never left here by flying or by roads. So if you are bringing them back, you should take them through the same channel. So they gave them their fishing boats and they moved their bodies, their remains, the bones were taken through the ocean to the various castles. At Cape Coast Castle, they have a particular door called the Door of No Return. It simply means once our forefathers walked through it, none of them is coming back home. It's true, they've left for over centuries, 3 different centuries. Today, we are here because we believe these people have broken a certain curse. They moved through the back door of the same Door of No Return into the castle, and then on that same day they were brought here to be buried. So they are coming through the back was to open the door down for all of us to start coming back home. It was a message that was sent to us to let us know that the particular bondage that was placed on that door has been broken. So we need to start coming back home. So they were buried here so that finally their souls will connect with the spirit of the land and find peace. So it's more like a representation of all those who died out there. Then in 2019, we were having the 400 solid years of African resilience. A year that Ghana chose to celebrate it in a grand style. The year of return. It's a message to our brothers and sisters out there. Our aunties and uncles needed to come back home. So they also heard the message and they decided to come. A lot of people came. So the Prime Minister of Barbados, Her Excellency Mia Amomot, decided to come back home to the motherland. But before she came back, she went to the graveyard where her ancestors were buried, made them assume almost everything that was found on that particular land, had it flown into the country to be buried alongside these two, for their souls to connect with the spirit of the land and bring back all those in the Caribbean who died to come back home to rest in perfect peace. So that's the symbol of this. 11th of November 2019. This was brought to us. Turning ourselves to the walls, you realize we have some pictures hanging on it. George Ekin Ferguson, Malcolm S. Queen Nani, George Padmore, Booker T. Washington, Harriet Tubman, aka the Black Moses, Dr. Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, Anna Julia Cropper, Sojourner Truth, Martin Luther King Jr., Frederick Douglass, Emmanuel, aka the Quick Peter, W.B. Du Bois, Marcus Messiah Garvey Jr., and finally Captain Bruce. These are pictures of selected emancipators or freedom fighters. Yes, in the history we know exactly what they did for us as Africans. They wanted to make the whole world know that yes, we are the strangest and strongest and bravest species on this land. And that's true. That's who we are. Even though these people died, their legacies are still living. They are here to keep reminding us, encouraging us that we can achieve that. The things we have in mind, we can achieve what we want or what they wanted. So today, you are back home, and I'm glad. We'll be moving towards the river where they finally had their bath. So let's please